finished shaving my head and porting it. Now I needed to go take it to get shaved by a professional, and I took it to 2 head specialists around my area, and they couldn't do this head. It was too small and it wouldn't fit on their machine, and they wouldn't do it to the millage that I wanted, or inches, whatever you're doing in your part of the world. So I had to do it by hand. It took me about 3 hours to do this. I'm finishing up polishing it. 0.8 mil I ended up taking off. It was very painstaking, hard to do by hand, and just a heck of a lot of time wasted. If you're just cleaning it up, you can do it with sandpaper, no problem. But if you're trying to take 0.8 of a mil off, it took me about 3 hours. I'll give you a few tips. First started with this huge 40 grit with this sander, and I was at it for about 2.5 hours on this alone. Make sure you do figure 8 patterns always when you're doing it. Every so often stop to use a wet. I was originally told to use one of these. It's a stone, wet stone, or knife sharpener. This is completely straight, and if you do that in figure 8s, you find out that the sander ain't sanding it completely straight, where it tends to. Was that a scratch? No, that's. Yes. You find with the electric sander it's a bit padded, and it'll dig into around here more deeper. So what will happen is you'll be left with a little edge. That's no good. So you need to go with this knife sharpener block, wet stone, and smooth it all up and see where you are not sanding properly. Yeah, so every 10-15 minutes hit it with this and see exactly where you're going wrong. Also, how I knew that I was done about 8 mil, 0.8 mil, I use this micro measurer and hit it from the top to the bottom here, and measure the standard height of it, and then kept going, and then kept measuring it and finding out what height I got, and each corner, because if you take off too much on one corner, the other corner, you know, listen, wouldn't do it on my Porsche once again, but on this $200 engine I would. Now I've ported the intake. Now the intake I've taken about 2-3 mil off. I used grinding stones off a drill and this little tool again. Awesome. To do this took me an hour, and I'll try to polish this side up a bit if you can. I haven't quite polished it up, but it's still looking kind of shiny with the sandpaper I used. Also in the exhaust. Now after you're done, you'll want to clean out these quite good and not make sure. You need to pop these open with. You can either take them out the valves, or you can clamp it open with a clamp. Make sure they don't close with all the shavings in there. You will damage the valve seals. So make sure you clean it properly, or you don't grind the actual valves. If you grind the valves, you'll wreck it. Okay. Also, the reason why I took so much off my intake is because I found that my inlet manifold of my carburetor is huge compared to this intake on the head. So I took a lot off that. Anyways, that's tips on a head.